Governor Johnson, you have said you're an advocate of getting out of Afghanistan tomorrow. You've also said that you'd support a Democratic plan to establish a timetable with an end date for withdrawal of U.S. troops in Afghanistan. Are you worried at all about providing a specific end date, and that possibly would enable the Taliban to move in the day after the U.S. troops left?
Well, first of all, I'm not in favor of a timetable. I'm in belief that that timetable should be tomorrow, and I realize that tomorrow may involve several months. I was opposed to us going into Iraq from the beginning. I really thought that there was no threat to our national security. I really thought that if we went into Iraq, we would find ourselves in a civil war to which there would be no end. And I thought we had the military surveillance capability to see Iraq roll out any weapons of mass destruction. And if they would have done that, we could have gone in and dealt with that. Afghanistan, originally, I was completely supportive of that. We were attacked. We attacked back. That's what our military is for. And after 6 months, I think we'd pretty effectively taken care of al-Qaeda. But that was 10 years ago. We're building roads, schools, bridges, and highways in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we're borrowing 43 cents out of every dollar to do that. In my opinion, this is crazy. And then looking at Libya right now. I'm in a position right now where I'm issuing opinions on everything right away. My opinion on Libya is I'm opposed to it A through Z.
Thank you, Governor.
Raise your hand if you would support a resumption of waterboarding under any circumstances.
Under certain circumstances or any circumstances?
Under certain circumstances.
Certain or any?
Under any circumstances that you could imagine, not all.
Sure. Okay.
So just to be clear, Governor Johnson.
Governor Johnson, the nation's unemployment rate is 8.8%. And this week, jobless claims rose to their highest level in 8 months. Among your proposals for getting the private sector to start hiring are eliminating corporate income tax, doing away with the federal minimum wage law, and to stop extending unemployment benefits. Isn't that just a windfall for big business?
Well, absolutely not. I think that repealing or doing away with the corporate income tax is simply getting us back to where we were. And we need to understand that the corporate income tax is a double tax, that we all own the corporations, and when income gets distributed to us, we pay the tax on that. So we have the highest corporate income tax in the world right now. Let's abolish it. Let's make it the way that it was to begin with. And that will literally create tens of millions of jobs overnight, because this country will be the only place to establish, grow, build, nurture business. Why won't that happen? And then with regard to unemployment benefits, I'm in the camp one that believes that we as individuals, we need a help. We need a bit of help. So government helps out. But at the point at which it runs out, that's when we really deal with the problems that we have. And as individuals, that's when we deal with those problems. So does government actually perhaps make the problem worse as opposed to better by having a finite amount of time that you would receive unemployment benefits?
Wait, no,
in fairness, this is like 9 questions for all these guys and none for me. So well, the fair tax, the fair Johnson thing here. Just okay. All right. It's okay.
I got a question for you right here, sir.
Oh, good.
Okay. Good. Governor Johnson, I'm glad to get to you, sir.
Great, thanks.
There you go. You say that Medicare and Medicaid should be cut almost in half, turned into block grants, and that the state should, in effect, run health care. Won't Democrats be able, in the 2012 campaign, to tell seniors, if they follow your plan, that the Republicans want to take away their Medicare?
Well, first of all, we're on the verge of a financial collapse. And I say that from the standpoint that we owe $14 trillion, and there's no way we repay that, given the fact that we have $1.65 trillion in deficit spending this year, last year, the year before, and years to come. So we need to balance the federal budget. And to do that, we need to start out by talking about Medicaid and Medicare. And I think by cutting Medicaid and Medicare by 43%, block granting the states 50 laboratories of innovation, all out in this notion of best practices, would in fact develop best practices for the delivery of health care to the poor and those over 65. And that if we don't do this, we're going to find ourselves bankrupt, which is where we're finding ourselves. In New Mexico, As governor of New Mexico, Medicaid was fee for service. I changed that to managed care. It was a 25% savings. If I would get Medicare, I could have implemented that same 25% savings. Federal government do away with the mandates and the strings, 43% doable.
Thank you, sir.
And Governor, we promise we'll be
Chris.
fair and balanced with the question time.
Fair and balanced,
We
that's
promise.
what I was thinking.
Shannon Bream has
Governor Johnson, another question for you. You said we should make it easier for immigrants to come here and work in the United States, and that Republicans should stop using scare tactics and vilifying immigrants. You also refer to a, quote, amnesty grace period. What is that?
Well, first of all, I start with the premise that immigration is ultimately responsible for tens of millions of jobs. So creating tens of millions of jobs as opposed to taking away of jobs. I think that we should make it as easy as possible to get a work visa. A work visa would not be citizenship, it wouldn't be a green card, but it would be a background check and a Social Security card so that applicable taxes would get paid. Immigration needs to be about work, not welfare. With regard to the 11 million illegal immigrants that are here in this country right now, I think we need to recognize that the government's the main reason they're here illegally. They've made it impossible to get a work visa. So set up a grace period whereby those 11 million can get a work visa, not citizenship, not a green card, but a work visa. Document those workers. And then so when it comes to building a fence across 2,000 miles of border, when it comes to putting the National Guard arm in arm across 2,000 miles of border, in my opinion, that would be a whole lot of money spent with very little, if any, benefit whatsoever.
Thank you, Governor.
Governor Johnson, prospective Republican candidate Donald Trump has proposed putting a 25% tax on Chinese imports if China does not stop manipulating its currency. Do you agree with that? What would you do?
You know, I'm a free market guy. I think you either believe in free markets or you don't. You either believe that lower cost of goods and services benefits all of us, or you don't. So in that context, no, I don't favor tariffs against China. I don't favor tariffs of any kind whatsoever.
In any instance?
No.
That was simple. Okay. Governor, thank you very much.
Governor Johnson, most Republicans and everyone else on this stage but you identify themselves as pro-life. You have said that abortion should be legal until the fetus is viable. How do you hope to woo conservative GOP voters here in South Carolina and across the country with that position?
Well, I support a woman's right to choose up until viability of the fetus. As governor of New Mexico, I would have signed a bill banning late-term abortion. I've always favored parental notification, I've always favored counseling, and I've always favored the notion that public funds should not be used for abortion. So running for governor of New Mexico in a state that was 2-to-1 Democrat, I really didn't get that vote in the primary, but I like to think that I got all of those votes in the general election, and that's a reality here also. For those individuals that hold that as their #1 issue, I'm not going to get that vote. I would hope to get that vote if I were to move on to the general election.
All right.
Governor Johnson, you say we should not only legalize and tax marijuana, you admit that you smoked it when it was still illegal in your state of New Mexico. After suffering several serious and very painful bone fractures. Question, how far would you go in legalizing drugs, sir?
Well, first of all, I would hope that people, when it comes to the drug issue, looking at me, would look at what I did as governor of New Mexico, which was everything was a cost-benefit analysis. So using that as a criteria, half of what we spend on law enforcement, the courts, and the prisons is drug-related. And to what end? We're arresting 1.8 million people a year in this country. We now have 2.3 million people behind bars in this country. We have the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world. I would ask people to look at this issue, see if they don't come to the same conclusion that I did, and that is that 90% of the drug problem is prohibition-related, not use-related. That's not to discount the problems with use and abuse, but that ought to be the focus. So I advocate legalizing marijuana. Control it, regulate it, tax it. It'll never be legal for kids to smoke pot or buy pot. It'll never be legal to smoke pot or do harm to others. When it comes to all other drugs, I advocate harm reduction strategies, which is simply looking at the drug problem first as a health issue rather than a criminal justice issue.
Depending on the poll, President Obama is getting a bump after the mission to kill Osama bin Laden. Some on the left are now saying President Obama is unbeatable in his re-election effort. Why are those pundits on the left wrong, and what is his biggest vulnerability? Governor Johnson.
I believe that we're on the verge of a financial collapse unless we balance the federal budget, and I don't see that happening with Obama. Now, I do see that happening with the Republican Party. Why the American electorate is going to give Republicans back control of the presidency and Congress and the Senate, given that a few short years ago they did that and Republicans passed a prescription drug care benefit and ran up record deficits, I'm not so sure. But I'm under the belief that only Republicans are capable of solving the problem that exists right now, which is the collapse of our economy.
Governor Johnson, if you had a reality TV show like Donald Trump does, what would it be?
Wow. I'm stumped. I'm really stumped. You know, I'm an active guy, so reality TV for me would be to spread this whole notion of physical activity and competition and the notion that we should all live in the present. I don't think it would be Donald Trump's show. I don't think it would be Sarah Palin's show either, crawling on her hands and knees up the ice fall in Alaska. But
you mentioned...
Wow, I'm just totally stuck.
I understand, and that's fair. You mentioned that you like to work out. We understand you've run 30 marathons.
I've run 30 marathons.
What are you running
lifetime.
away from?
You know, I got to stand on top of the planet also. I had the good fortune to summit Mount Everest, which I thought was... I have a goal to climb the highest mountain on each continent. So now I get to finish my reality show. I hope to climb the highest mountain on each of the 7 continents. I have 3 to go, so my reality show would be trying those last 3.
We knew we'd get there.
Thank you.
Governor, thank you.
Thanks for the break.
Each candidate has 30 seconds for closing remarks right now. We will go down the row. Governor Johnson.
I'm an entrepreneur that ran for governor of New Mexico promising to bring a common-sense business approach to state government, that everything was going to be a cost-benefit analysis. I got reelected in a state that was 2-to-1 Democrat. I think we're on the verge of a financial collapse unless we balance the budget, and that means some really, really tough choices that are all doable, and they're all doable under the context of a common-sense business approach to the way government does business and a cost-benefit analysis that goes along with everything that government is doing. Gary Johnson, 2012.com.